Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, cats and kittens, and especially kittens if they're munchkin cats. Welcome to the Day 9 Daily, where we learn to be a better gamer. In today's episode, we're in the 600s. No one even keeps track of the episode numbers anymore. It's basically a soap opera. And this is the days of our lives of gaming. If that were true, there's only one character on the show. I have to marry, divorce, impregnate, murder myself, all within one 20-minute period a day. Let's see how it goes. That took a weird turn. In today's show, what we're going to do, we're going to look at some Terran vs. Protoss. Oh, hi, Tristan. We're going to look at Terran vs. Protoss from MMA, series of games. And we're going to examine how MMA exploits the thin edge. Because very often, when you first step into a game, it's easy to get a big edge by doing something crazy. I don't know, say something like an early cheese. He doesn't see it coming. Here's the cheese. Ooh. Or when StarCraft 2 is in the beta. I built any immortals at all, and you built roaches. I win. Ooh. But nowadays, as people are getting more and more optimal with their openings, they don't really make errors with the opening segments of their game, where you can just walk up with an easy early attack. You get people who practice a lot who don't walk their army in and suicide it on bad occasions. So the question is, how do you get an edge when your opponent isn't making huge mistakes or when you can't do big plays without running the risk of immediate death? We're going to look at that today. Now, before we begin, I need to let you know something uninteresting that I found very amusing. I have a very bad habit of when I intend to type the word thin, I type thing. And a lot of times, I don't even notice it. It happened this morning when, for any of you who saw the topic that I posted this morning, I talked about how to get a thing edge in Terran vs. Protoss. Because it's important to have an edge that's very, very thing. But this has been a lot of a struggle when I was trying to reassure a female friend of mine who was talking about how she was going to get invited, or she was going to get. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the right tense for my verbs. How at the time she was going to be going to a Valentine's Day dinner she'd been invited to, and she's like, but I've gained weight. I look horrible. I'm so fat. And I'm like, no, you're very thin. I promise you, you're one of the thingest girls I know. And it took me a while to figure out why she was so offended. So we're going to learn how to get a thing edge in Terran vs. Protoss today. It was a good story. It was fine. It was an adequate story. Your day would remain unchanged had I told it or not. Got big hair today. Tomorrow we're going to look at Koyuki, excuse me. I call him Case, but Koyuki's Control Paladin in the Day 9 Hearthstone Decktacular. Who has a name for a show? Wha-bam. Oh, man. The Hearthstone Decktacular. Day 9's Decktacular. Where we learn about big swinging decks. And then on Friday I'm going to be playing a game with JP. I gotta figure out what it is. I gotta figure it out. Alright. Now we're about to take a risk. I'm in the game. See this overlay here? This overlay right here normally covers up the replay bar, which is down here. Because this is the game heart overlay. We have to switch over onto this mode if we want to do it. I can even participate in Game Heart if I wanted to, but that's fine. I want to keep the focus on the game, not my darling soap operatic face. Now, the reason this is dangerous, for any of you who don't know the Game Heart interface, it's this absolutely beautiful observer interface that, you know, has worker count and supply and money, and will soon enough have upgrades listed down here. Has the score in the best of 3, even in a replay, so you get a sense of where we are in the game. But for some reason on my computer, there's times when Game Heart takes up the same processor that my encoder does. And my encoder's like, don't worry, I know what to do. We'll turn off. I understand parallel processing. And this makes me want to stab my processor. Not Game Heart, because honestly, she is a beauty. But if we go on tilt today, I want to remind you that it is not nearly as bad as the tilt I went on when we looked at Startail Life's aggressive Zerg vs. Protoss. Let's see if we can do it. In the bottom right corner, we have Acer's MMA. And up in... Cat hair. Sorry, cat hair in the mouse getting in the way. We got Acer MMA, and we have Patience from Azubu. Now, Patience is a player who did a fantastic job tearing through all the Terran players at Dreamhack, achieving himself 3rd place. But MMA was the one who bested him in the first round. Now, what I want to do is begin going through this rather slowly at the start. Very often what we'll see out of a Terran player early on is some play, whether it be the Hellions, a Reaper, or even just a good old single barracks. We see some play for the Terran player to quickly establish control of a second base, after which the Terran player transitions into a couple barracks and medevacs. Loose, simple, clean, easy, qualitative opening statement. Some stuff into a couple of barracks and medevacs. We're going to do other things like get ourselves up the happy time upgrades, perhaps be preparing a 3rd and other such things, but I don't want to complicate it more than that for now. Because what I think most people will do, especially if they're a Terran buddy who plays a lot of Terran vs. Protoss, is they'll work a little bit until they find the best possible build and just follow that. I get barracks 2 at this time, I get my depots at this time, build SCVs till this point. My medevacs come out at 9:30 every single time. Every game, game in, game out, 9:30, no problem. That's the build order, and that's what I'm going to do. But the problem is, to do that every game, you also have to be doing this. You have to be covering your face and ignoring everything that the Protoss player is doing. And you know what tons of experienced players will say is, don't deviate from your build. Choose a build and stick to it. We're going to violate that. In this game, we're going to be seeing some things that are build order-esque, but then we're going to see a lot of adjustments that MMA is making based upon what his opponent is seeing. Because our opponent could be going for a 1-gate, really aggressive opening, or he could be going 1-gate, no units with a Nexus. He could be going for a Forge follow-up. He could be going for a Robo follow-up. All these differences are things that we can exploit in different ways. So why follow our rote, usual, standard build when we could be changing it all the time? And not, changing is too strong of a word, but adjusting is one of my favorite words in all of strategy. Adjustment is the core of our strategy. So here's a buildy thing. 12 barracks and 12 refinery will yield a Ripa right when the barracks is done. This is a nice little timing-based thing, and this is where many people will slowly get caught up in the addiction that is the build order. It's very fun to just have everything perfectly, meticulously planned out. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the Reaper is going to start right when the barracks is done, and because that felt so good, I'm going to wind up building my command center at the exact time every game. Depots at the exact time every game as well. Reaper. And soon enough, you'll have a player who's not thinking. Let's take a look at Camp MMA. Why would MMA scout on this map right when his barracks is done? This is a very sly, slick little timing that permits us to arrive right as the Cybernetics core finishes. Scouting when the barracks done, we arrive right as the core finishes. I'm going to try to avoid going into the Acer MMA cam because it completely changes the entire interface. Okay, cool. So what we see out of MMA, who's moving right along, checking out the watchtowers, all that sort of good stuff. Cat hair, excuse me. Anytime you hear me blowing, it's cat hair, man. It's a cat hair problem. So this is the sort of stuff up to now that we would define as build order based play. Right, the Reaper coming out, and the reason we know that this is a build order based play is that MMA has no information at all. He can't see a damn thing. I should actually probably let this run just a smidge longer, because really up to this point, when we see the reactor going down, is truly the point that is up to the build order moment. We can do little changes from this point on, but I also want to stop here to note that there's no more units in the geyser. All been pulled out, so we have the maximum amount of workers collecting minerals. I'm sure that this opening has been seen many times by many people, the idea of getting Fast Reaper for Fast Reactor and going all mineral-like. But let's start to see some of the things that MMA can note. Aha! Absolutely no Zealot. Didn't see one coming in, not going to see one going out. Aha! One geyser. Nothing going on at the cybernetics core. Nothing going on at the gateway. We see the wiggly lights from the Mama Ship core. So here begins some clever adjustments on MMA's part. It's kind of clear what it is that you can conclude at this point in time. There's absolutely no early threat. My opponent is probably expanding, and with this one scout, now certainly expanding. So how are we going to see MMA respond? Swiftly puts 3 back into gas. Swiftly gets a barracks. Second one coming up. Notably, we're seeing that there is not a there's not a bunker coming down. Doesn't seem like a tremendous difference, but MMA is getting the full scout of everything he can. He now sees that the cybernetics core is starting to do some warping in. Maximum vision spotting on everything. Now, if you're in MMA's shoes, what can you do with that little bit of extra funds that you've received by cutting that early bunker? Well, this is where MMA just goes straight for a Vespene gas geyser. Come on. Oh, that's what this one queued up. Yeah. Now, we're at 5 minutes into the game, but MMA has some significant information. He sees that there's a usual hyper-passive opening from Patience. Patience is probably going for some tech like a Stargate, a Robo, a Forge. Is very unlikely to be doing something that is cybernetics core based in terms of a warp gate attack, because it wasn't researching at the start. The Reaper saw it begin researching, and there was no chrono boost. So okay, cool, there's really not a lot going on. MMA is going to continue to do a lot of very smart things that start to be very positional. We talked about the refinery being a build order adjustment. We're going to continue to talk about build order adjustments like this incredibly fast tech lab. But there's also positional adjustments that MMA is making, holding these watchtowers. He's only really going to be up against 2 stalkers at most, and that second stalker won't be out for a while. So the Reaper that once upon a time was being used for aggression can now clear out the whole map. This is a really safe play because we are certain that there's no units, because we saw 1 gateway and no units and a late warp gate. This is safe without a bunker. These units are safe because there's no threat to them. This is a brilliant play just in case there's some sort of proxy, like a Stargate. And I can't emphasize enough how fast these pieces are. This barracks came up earlier because a bunker wasn't built first. So this stim is going to be started nice and early on. This refinery is started nice and early on. And soon enough, a factory is going to be getting started nice and early on. And oh, just a note, we're going to be contrasting this opening with a different game in part 2, where it's the same start, but then little tweaks from MMA begin to fall out. And we see like the positioning of the Marines is a big one, the ordering of these things in relationship to a bunker is also very important. So more clever little adjustments coming in for MMA. Slowly working his way forward, and then does this Marine push. Now it's very easy to lose a bunch of Marines to some stalkers that are well microed. So what MMA is going to begin doing is just poke with the Reaper, that by the way can easily get out in case of an emergency. If we look back at MMA's base, Jesus, this is like such an early factory. This factory is getting started, hell, close to 6 minutes. This is an amazingly early factory right now. And, thanks to this mothership core being baited out, MMA's Marines even might have an opportunity to pick off a mothership core. No, wow, look at this. Despite MMA doing an ultra-fast, tech-based build, super fast factory, he has successfully baited out a photon overcharge. Very impressive little optimizations going on. And I mean, in short, there's not huge amounts of intel that MMA's using to be able to make these plays. He's just going, oh, initial scout, you went for a no-unit fast nexus? Okay, well, let me use these Marines to hold position so I check around for other things. I'm going to cut my bunker. And then, you know, I'm going to make a push, but let me lead with the Reaper just in case you're not powering as hard as I think you are. And you are powering as hard as I think you are. All right, I'm going to push. Cool. At any point in time, these Marines could have fallen back. But of course, they did not have to. So MMA isn't exactly positive of what's going on, but we see an engineering bay en route coming up. We see that the Reaper is continuing to try to be aggressive. We see that everything's finally, slowly falling back. And then in a very nice bit of scouting, MMA is able to work his way up into the main base and kind of see vaguely what's going on. If this were a different map, that it wasn't so easy, this Reaper could just as well be chilling at the front and see this Immortal coming out. So MMA, who has gone bunkerless up to this point in time, who lost the Reaper in the main base, who accidentally rallies these Marines forward and sees that there is indeed a push coming, simply swiftly throws down all these sorts of bunkery things, the ones that he delayed for so long before, with a lot of Marines and an almost done starport. I mean, these medevacs might even get out by 9 minutes. Normally they get out at 10. 9:30 if a player is quote-unquote rushing for them with a standard build. And even the latest bunkers in the world are almost fine enough. Now here's where you're going to consider me a bastard. This is where you're going to be like, Sean, why did you show this game if this happened? MMA is going to mess up a little bit and this isn't going to work out. Don't worry. I intentionally didn't tell you that till now. Because it's very easy for kind people, warm-hearted, good people, to be swayed by the knowledge of what results are. To think, you know, if I'm like, oh yeah, MMA wins this game, for them to go, oh wow, everything that MMA is doing must be great. MMA loses this game, and everything that MMA is doing is great. I'm pausing at the time when the bunkers get canceled, just to show you that if I back up, we're at 837, if we back up to 826, I just want you to visually see that the bunkers that were thrown down oh so late, if they were thrown down 7 seconds earlier, would have been on time. Even now, they're more or less on time. But MMA cancels everything. I think it was a misclick, to be honest. But let's look at some important factors in all of this. MMA will almost never have stim if he's doing a standard build. But now he does. This Immortal push, in many ways, relies on you striking a Terran before stim's done. Well, hey, MMA identified that he wasn't going to be under threat. So remember that tech lab that we called so early? Now it's not qualitative anymore. It's quantitative. Stim arrives when the 2 Immortal push arrives. Excellent. Everything's going to get pulled. The Marines do their magic, killing off the Immortals. Immortals are really good against Marines, by the way. As counterintuitive as that statement might seem. Again, a bunker or 2 would have totally saved this. But then, MMA is still actually not in that bad of a spot. Because he has medevacs out. Accidentally only built 1 during the midst of that attack. but has stim and medevacs. Almost always this push from Protoss runs into no stim and no medevacs. So here's the second big error that MMA makes. It's a small one, but when you're at the pro level, these wind up being big ones. He leaves his orbital command landed for too long, and it barely gets picked off. It was eating immortal shots for a while. So, I picked this game to begin with because we saw some clear adjustments that went on, identifying what the opponent was doing early on, what his capabilities are, and we cut all these corners. And there's this moment that's very easy to get discouraged, which is at 8:37 when the attack shows up. I'm imagining you on the ladder trying to take this style from MMA. You're like, okay, cool. And then this happens where you lose your front. Not the game, because clearly MMA is still in the game and is going to put up an insane fight. It's going to be really impressive. But the front gets broken, and it's at this moment right here at 8:30 or so. I think I'm pulling back to the right time. No, I'm not. Let's see. Maybe it's at 13:54. God, it's hard to make your point when this time here doesn't correspond to this time over here. Ah, perfect. It's very easy for this moment to trick you as a player into thinking that MMA's opening was actually wrong. But it's not, damn it. We've seen everything get MMA into a good position. We even saw Stim finish right in time with this. If MMA doesn't cancel all 3 bunkers, he's in great shape because he has Stim. He has his medevac coming out. He's going to have a lot of Marines in high numbers. He's killed off the scary part of the push, which is the Immortals. Going to have all those things. So if we were to, say, adjust in MMA's shoes, what might we say? We could just leave the Reaper outside of the front of his base and do everything that we did. And we would have spotted this push coming out way earlier, but it would have been fine. Cool. Now, I want to continue to admire MMA's scrappy play in this game. Let me return back to the point we were at before. Again, this totally stinks. This functionally puts MMA all in. And we're going to see Patience try to work his way through, and we're going to see... Actually, yeah, backing up just a pinch, this is where we're going to halt. So MMA's done some smart things. Get Widow Mines to help deal with this push, because this player's almost certainly gone for only Immortals and no Observers. We have like 3 barracks here, and this is what we have. I will leave you with this question over the break. What is MMA to do now in this position where he's not dead, but he doesn't look like he's in great shape? We want to continue to think, based upon the fact that Patience committed to this specific attack, this Warp Gate Immortal attack, what weaknesses does Patience have that we could potentially exploit? I dare say you should stay tuned for part 2 in 3 minutes. On a break. Yeah, on a break.